We continue now with examining another essential Buddhist teaching, meditation, and concluding with my thoughts about Buddhism. Broadly speaking, there are two types of meditation described by the Buddha in the Pali Canon: Samatha, which means calm abiding, and Vipasyana, or Vipassana in Pali, which means insight. Samatha meditation aims at developing focus and concentration and quieting the mind. Samatha meditation leads to samadhi, a state of tranquility. Vipassana meditation is aimed at developing insight and mindfulness, especially understanding the impermanence of reality. Vipassana leads to the development of wisdom and is essential. Calming meditation alone will not help you achieve nirvana. You need understanding as well. Buddhist meditation incorporates two components of the Noble Eightfold Path: right mindfulness and right concentration. The Buddha explained, "And what is right mindfulness? It is when a mendicant meditates by observing an aspect of the body, kaya, for example, its breath, posture, activities, and sensations. They meditate observing an aspect of feelings, vedanta, that is, whether pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. They meditate observing an aspect of the mind, siti, that is, if it's gripped by desire or anger, distracted or focused, sleepy or energized. They meditate on examining moment-by-moment experiences in terms of the Buddhist principles like the 5 hindrances, which include sensory desire, ill will, sloth, restlessness, and doubt. The 5 aggregates: body, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. The 6 sense bases: eye, ear, tongue, nose, body, and mind. The 7 factors of awakening: mindfulness, analytical scrutiny of moment-to-moment experience, applying mental strength to abandon the 5 hindrances, the experience of joy and rapture, followed by tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. The 4 noble truths: suffering, the cause of suffering, what ends suffering, and how to end suffering. As to right concentration, the Buddha explained, "Here, bhikkhus, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a bhikkhu enters and dwells in the first jhana," the Pali word referring to the first stage of meditative concentration, which is accompanied by thought and examination with rapture and happiness, born of seclusion. With the subsiding of thought and examination, he enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought and examination, and has rapture and happiness, born of concentration. With the fading away as well as of rapture, he dwells equanimous, mindful and clearly comprehending. He experiences happiness with the body. He enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare he is equanimous, mindful, one who dwells happily. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, he enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and includes the purification of mindfulness by equanimity. This is called right concentration. There's a connection between right mindfulness and right contemplation. Recall the previously mentioned 7 factors of awakening, one of the principles of right mindfulness to meditate upon. These are mindfulness analytical scrutiny of moment-to-moment experience, applying mental strength to abandon the five hindrances, the experience of joy and rapture, followed by tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. The first three of these factors, mindfulness, analytical scrutiny of moment-to-moment experience, and applying mental strength to abandon the five hindrances, will help, the Buddha said, get you to the first stage of right concentration, jhana, where sensual desires and the five hindrances are temporarily suspended, and you experience joy, pleasure, directed thought, and sustained thought when in seclusion. This joy is the fourth of the 7 factors of awakening and leads to the second stage of right concentration, that is, the second jhana, where mental chatter ceases and one has the experience of awareness itself that brings about deeper joy. Then comes the third stage of right concentration, the third jhana, where excited joy fades and the tranquility of equanimity is hinted at, along with mindful concentration and calm pleasure, these being the fifth and sixth of the 7 factors of mindfulness. Finally, in the fourth stage, there is only equanimity, the 7th mindful factor of awakening, an evenness of mind, undisturbed by emotional upheavals. Beyond the 4 form jhanas we just reviewed are the 4 formless jhanas shown here and also mentioned in part 1 of this chapter. While not usually considered part of right concentration, they represent higher developments of concentration. You've just seen how the Buddha taught his followers to meditate on increasingly abstract concepts. In other places, the Buddha had his followers meditate, that is, just think upon things in a dedicated fashion. For example, in the middle-length discourse MN10, the Buddha advised to meditate on an aspect of the body, such as breathing, postures, being aware in every situation, looking at one's body as a repulsive object or the elements that make up one's body. An aspect of feelings, such as pain, neutral or pleasant feelings. An aspect of mind, such as greed, hate, delusion, distraction, and being scattered, a mind that is not supreme, experience samadhi, or being freed and the opposite of each thing. An aspect of principles, such as hindrances like sexual desire and ill will, the 5 aggregates, the field of the senses, awakening factors like mindfulness and energy, and truths like the 4 noble truths. In each case, the Buddha says one should be keen, aware, and mindful in meditation, and rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. A very similar set of instructions are found at DN 22 and in the middle-length discourses, MN 118, the Buddha describes the practice of breathing meditation. The Buddha taught that breath meditation is a powerful technique as it combines elements of both types of meditation, calm abiding and insight. In the middle discourses, after praising the Buddhist community for its progress, the Buddha explained, "Mendicants, when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is very fruitful and beneficial. Mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, fulfills the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, that is, body, feelings, mental state, and contemplating the principles that govern reality. The 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, when developed and cultivated, fulfill the 7 awakening factors, that is, mindfulness, investigation of arising and passing of phenomena, engagement of mental energy, the experience of rapture and joy, the experience of tranquility, a sense of collectedness and stable concentration, and the feeling of equanimity. As you've seen, these are progressive states developed and experienced in meditation. The Buddha continued, and the 7 awakening factors, when developed and cultivated, fulfill knowledge and freedom from rebirth. He then asked rhetorically, and how is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated to be very fruitful and beneficial? He explained, it is when a mendicant, gone to a wilderness, or to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, sits down cross-legged, sets their body straight, and brings mindfulness to the present. The Buddha then described a method of breath meditation. Just mindful they breathe in, mindful they breathe out. Breathing in heavily they know, I'm breathing in heavily. Breathing out heavily they know, I'm breathing out heavily. Breathing in lightly they know, I'm breathing in lightly. Breathing out lightly they know, I'm breathing out lightly. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, experiencing the whole body. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, experiencing the whole body. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, stilling the physical process. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, stilling the physical process. Note that this was all about the first category of right mindfulness, the body. The Buddha then repeated the instruction, this time focusing on the second category of right mindfulness, feeling. He said, they practice like this. I'll breathe in, experiencing rapture. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, experiencing rapture. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, experiencing bliss. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, experiencing bliss. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, experiencing the mental process. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, experiencing the mental process, that is, perceptions and feelings. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, stilling the mental process. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, stilling the mental process. He then went on to the third category of right mindfulness, one's mental state. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, experiencing the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, experiencing the mind as clear. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, gladdening the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, gladdening the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, immersing the mind in samadhi, deep meditative stillness. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, immersing the mind in samadhi. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, freeing the mind. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, freeing the mind. And finally, we get to the fourth mindfulness category, the impermanence of mental phenomena. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, observing impermanence. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, observing impermanence. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, observing fading away. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, observing fading away. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, observing cessation. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, observing cessation. They practice like this. I'll breathe in, observing letting go. They practice like this. I'll breathe out, observing letting go. Of these 4 final steps related to impermanence, Bhikkhu Sujato at Sutta Central writes, the 4 final steps shift focus to discernment or insight, Vipasyana. This exemplifies the most common course of practice where serenity precedes discernment. Here, impermanence is contemplated in the context of mindfulness of breathing itself. The entire course of practice has seen the physical energies of breath become subtle and fade, then the mental processes, then the mind itself is transformed. The meditator reflects on these changes and sees not simply that change happens, but how changes happen due to causes. Recall that insight meditation, Vipasyana, refers to seeing things the way they really are, that is, impermanent. While breath meditation in the first three categories of right mindfulness helps relax the body and mind, this is generally a temporary condition, while insight into impermanence is what leads to permanent transformation. Besides breath meditation, in several places in the Pali Canon, the Buddha described what is known as object meditation, where a single object or quality completely fills your entire sphere of awareness, creating a limitless, non-dual focus. Filling one's mind with a single thing is called kasina in Pali. One such passage reads, "Mendicants, there are these 10 universal dimensions of meditation." What 10? Someone perceives the meditation on universal earth above, below, across, undivided and limitless. They perceive the meditation on universal water, the meditation on universal fire, the meditation on universal air, the meditation on universal blue, the meditation on universal yellow, the meditation on universal red, the meditation on universal white, the meditation on universal space. They perceive the meditation on universal consciousness, above, below, across, undivided and limitless. These are the 10 universal dimensions of meditation. Though the Buddha did not elaborate on the method, later practitioners developed the practice into a highly structured activity. For example, you sit a few feet away from one of the objects the Buddha specified, which might be a lump of smooth clay formed into a circle as an example of earth, a bowl filled to the brim with clear water, as shown here, a flame seen through a hole in a screen, as air is invisible until you focus on its effect like wind, moving an object, or focus on the sensation of wind on the skin, a colored disk, sunlight streaming through a window or hole in a wall, the open sky seen through an opening. One then stares at it with soft focus, simply taking in its qualities and sometimes simply, silently repeating the word for what you see. After a few minutes, you close your eyes and you will see in your mind's eye a photographic inverse afterimage of the disk. You keep opening and closing your eyes, refreshing the memory until the mental image looks exactly like the physical object. At some point, the image will transform into a brilliant, radiant light. At this point, one has found deep concentration. The Buddha also taught his followers to meditate on love, compassion, rejoicing, and equanimity. In the long discourses, we read, "It's when a realized one arises in the world, perfected, a fully awakened Buddha. That's how a mendicant is accomplished in ethics. Seeing that the hindrances have been given up in them, joy springs up. Being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. And when blissful, the mind becomes immersed." They meditate on spreading a heart full of love to one direction, and to the second, and to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, all around, they spread a heart full of love to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. Suppose there was a powerful hornblower. They'd easily make themselves heard in the four quarters. In the same way, when the heart's release by love has been developed like this, any limited deeds they've done don't remain or persist there. This is a path to company with divinity. Furthermore, a mendicant meditates spreading a heart full of compassion. They meditate spreading a heart full of rejoicing. They meditate spreading a heart full of equanimity to one direction, and to the second, and to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, all around, they spread a heart full of equanimity to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. Suppose there was a powerful hornblower. They'd easily make themselves heard in the four quarters. In the same way, when the heart's release by equanimity has been developed and cultivated like this, any limited deeds they've done don't remain or persist there. This, too, is a path to company with divinity. These four objects of meditation, love, compassion, rejoicing, and equanimity, are known as the Four Divine Abodes. One of the most beautiful Buddhist prescriptions for living is also often used as a meditation. It's found in the group of discourses, the Sutta Nipata, and is known in Pali as the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which translates as the practice of loving kindness. It reads, "Those who are skilled in the meaning of Scripture should practice as follows to realize the state of peace. Let them be capable and upright, very upright, easy to speak to, gentle and humble, content and unburdensome, unbusied, living lightly, alert, with senses calmed, courteous, not fawning on families. Let them not do the slightest thing that others who are wise would blame. May they be happy and safe. May all beings be happy. Whatever living creatures there are with not a one left out, frail or firm, long or large, medium, small, tiny or round, seen or unseen, living far or near, those who have been born and those about to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, nor look down on anyone anywhere. Though provoked or aggrieved, let them not wish pain on each other, even as a mother would protect with her life her child, her only child. So too, for all creatures, unfold a boundless heart. With love for the whole world, unfold a boundless heart, above, below, all around, unconstricted, without enmity or foe. When standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, while yet unweary, keep this ever in mind, for this, they say, is a divine meditation in this life. Avoiding harmful views, virtuous, accomplished in insight, with desire for sensual pleasures dispelled, they never return to a womb again. In the middle discourses, the Buddha also instructed his disciples to meditate on what may seem an odd topic, foulness, telling them to examine their own body, up from the soles of the feet and down from the tips of the hairs, wrapped in skin and full of many kinds of filth. In this body there is head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, undigested food, feces, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, snot, synovial fluid, and urine. Furthermore, he counseled, suppose a mendicant were to see a corpse discarded in a charnel ground, and it had been dead for 1, 2, or 3 days, bloated, livid, and festering. They'd compare it with their own body. This body is also of that same nature, that same kind, and cannot go beyond that. As they meditate like this, diligent, keen, and resolute, memories and thoughts tied to a domestic life are given up. Their mind becomes stilled internally, it settles, unifies, and becomes immersed in samadhi. That, too, is how a mendicant develops mindfulness of the body. The point here is to counter attachment to the body, to vanity, and the illusion that the body is a permanent, desirable self. In the numbered discourses and in several other places, the Buddha told his disciples, "One thing, mendicants, when developed and cultivated, leads solely to disillusionment, that is, to the cessation of illusion, to dispassion, that is, the cessation of passion, to cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment." He then asked rhetorically, "What one thing?" To which he replied, "Recollection of the Buddha. This one thing, when developed and cultivated, leads solely to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment." He then repeated his assertion. "One thing, mendicants, when developed and cultivated, leads solely to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment." To which he again asked rhetorically, "What one thing?" He then listed 9 other things: recollection of the teaching, recollection of the Sangha, the community, recollection of ethical conduct, recollection of generosity, recollection of the deities, mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of death, mindfulness of the body, recollection of peace. This one thing, when developed and cultivated, leads solely to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. These 10 things are often called the 10 Remembrances and are powerful tools to use in the pursuit of peace, insight, awakening, and the extinguishment of things which cause suffering. In a middle-length discourse on emptiness, the Buddha described the final stage of meditation. He began by providing his disciples with an example of how to shut out distractions and find nirvana. He commented on the house where they were gathered and noted what it was empty of and what remained. Consider this stilt longhouse of the monk Megara's mother. It's empty of elephants, cows, horses, and mares, of gold and silver, and of gatherings of men and women. Emptiness is not a metaphysical property, but a relative state. Something is empty of something. There is only this that is not emptiness, namely the oneness dependent on the mendicant Sangha, the community of Buddhist monks residing there. Oneness, like emptiness, is a relative concept. Those things that are more distracting and tempting are absent, leaving only that which is more peaceful. He then suggested that the monks could leave the village, enter the forest wilderness, and note what was absent and what remained. The verse reads, "In the same way, a mendicant, ignoring the perception of the village and the perception of people, focuses on the oneness dependent on the perception of wilderness," which is also translated forest. The Buddha then suggested that when one did this, they would have important experiences, which he described as follows. Their mind leaps forth, gains confidence, settles down, and becomes decided in that perception of wilderness. They understand here there is no stress due to the perception of village or the perception of people. There is only this modicum of stress, namely the oneness dependent on the perception of wilderness. They understand this field of perception is empty of the perception of the village. It's empty of the perception of people. There is only this that is not emptiness, namely the oneness dependent on the perception of wilderness. And so they regard it as empty of what is not there, but as to what remains, they understand that it is present. That is to say, the purity of the emptiness is not because everything is empty, but because what is empty is accurately recognized as empty. That's how emptiness manifests in them, genuine, undistorted, and pure. The Buddha then suggested that his disciples focus on ever more simple and abstract things like earth, infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither the perception nor non-perception, which refers to a state where the mind no longer perceives objects, even the object of nothingness, but yet retains a very subtle perception of consciousness. The Buddha then revealed the final stage of meditation, where the meditator focuses on the signless immersion of the heart. Signless here refers to a mental state with no mental images, while the phrase immersion of the heart implies a richness of experience which is probably nibbana. The Buddha then explained, "They who reach this stage understand even this signless immersion of the heart is produced by choices and intentions. Liberating insight comes from insight into the state of signless meditation. That is to say, it is the insight into insight itself. They understand, but whatever is produced by choices and intentions is impermanent and liable to cessation." Note that here there is a self acting, making choices and having intention. What we seek, however, is yet beyond our choices and intention, beyond even our insight, as it is something of which we had no part in creating. Continuing, the Buddha explained, "Knowing and seeing like this, their mind is freed from the defilements of sensuality, desire to be reborn, and ignorance. When they're freed, they know they're freed. It's the realization that nothing is from us that seems to cause our liberation." Finally, the Buddha said, "They understand rebirth is ended. The spiritual journey has been completed. What had to be done has been done. There's nothing further for this place." There are critics of Buddhist meditation. The 20th century philosopher and religious teacher Krishnamurti, for example, taught that one should meditate without structure, that is, without a system of formal exercises and techniques as we see in Buddhism and in some branches of Hinduism. He taught that meditation should occur in the midst of daily life as a continuous observation of life with attention to all relationships, work, and every action. On this point, the Buddha would concur, as this is really part of the practice of right mindfulness. He taught that you need to foster attention, not the willful search for emptiness, as we see in Buddhism, which Krishnamurti said dulls the mind. And he taught that we should be free from cults and beware of organized systems and formulas. It is beyond doubt, however, that many find the meditation practices which the Buddha outlined as helpful. As you've seen, beyond common agreement that the Buddha was focused on relieving suffering, there are many different understandings of the Buddha and his teachings, especially the teachings of not-self and who or what experiences things, what transfers into the afterlife, and nirvana. While some understand the Buddha as simply a teacher of a method to relieve stress, that is neither how the Buddha nor his disciples understood him. Buddhism is a religion complete with a Messiah-like figure, a doctrine of salvation dependent on faith in the Buddha, his teachings, and his community. It has a complete set of moral prescriptions, a belief in heaven and hell, in which the consequences of moral choices are experienced, and a belief that a Buddha will return to bring the diverse nations and kingdoms of humanity together. Nor are the teachings of the Buddha, when viewed in a proper lens, that different from the teachings of the other great religions. There is no creator God in Buddhism, but if creation is eternal, then there is no beginning to it. Further, God is not personified in Buddhism, but the personification of God has always been problematic, even in Western thought. All we know is our experiential reality. Anything beyond that is speculation. The Buddha stayed focused on what we experience, perhaps because India was awash in theological speculation and priestcraft. Critics of Buddhism argue that its focus on retreat from contact with the world is the opposite of engagement with the world, which we often view as the purpose of Western religions. Retreat from contact with the world is, however, only part of the Noble Eightfold Path, which also includes right speech, right action, right intention, and right livelihood, all instructions about how to engage with the world. There's also the Buddha's emphasis on showing compassion for all living things, yet another positive engagement with the world. Further, if the Buddhist practice of retreat from the world and its distractions is to discover a wholly underlying, unconditioned reality upon which ultimate salvation depends, then the apparent difference between the goal of life in Buddhism to find the unconditioned and in Western religion to find God is easily surmountable. Buddhism also needs to be understood in historic context and as what it views as a correction to the Vedic Brahmanical religion of the Buddha's time, with its focus on ritual, class status, and, with the Upanishads, realizing one's identity with Brahman. Buddhism is light on ritual other than meditation, teaches no distinctions based on class, and teaches that holding on to belief that one is Brahman is speculation and part of the clinging that causes suffering, as it fosters craving, conceit, and perhaps delusion. The Buddha taught that true liberation is to be free from all conceptions of self, and to know that the reality upon which all depends is not self. That's a fairly Western view of God. As to the belief in reincarnation, the West does not have this belief, but whether it matters in terms of salvation is debatable.